E-commerce brand owners, if you are running Facebook or TikTok ads and you are using UGC, let me share with you how we get 10 to 20 times the amount of actual creative. What is up, e-commerce brand owners? So most people that get UGC creatives go to services where they get 1 or 2 videos from a specific creator for maybe $200 to $300. Now I'm gonna show you a way that we get UGC for much cheaper and how we focus on getting raw content and repurposing that raw content into 10, 20, 30 unique videos for the price that most people pay for just one. And the reason why this is so important is because creatives is the center for where most e-commerce brands die, because they try to find the perfect looking content as opposed to testing a sufficient amount of volume to figure out what works. And in reality, the hook of your video is the most important part because it's the part of the video that everyone is going to watch. So way too many people have a great creative with a really shitty hook, when in reality, they could just test 10 or 20 hooks behind that core creative concept and scale so much further than they do right now. And what I'm about to show you in this video is literally the difference between brands that survive and brands that thrive. All right, so if you're in the dropshipping world, you probably haven't even heard of the concept of a content brief or a UGC brief. And all that a brief really is a place that you store content ideas. Now, this ideation and this research process is so overlooked by so many brand owners, especially dropshippers. And I'm guilty of this as well, where you have a video editor, go out and find repurposed content, grab it and mash it all together however they like, and that they are used to editing the creative. Whereas you and I as the brand owners, it is our responsibility to understand who our market is and what type of creative is going to speak best to them. Now that's where a brief comes in. So this is an example of how we might lay out a content brief for a creator, and that we can also relay over to an editor so they have a good idea as to what we're shooting for and kind of that final end product. So again, you don't have to get this nitty gritty and granular with it, but this is a great example of what some of the top e-commerce businesses are doing, including dropshippers. So whenever you work with a creator, it's very important to understand what your product and your offer is, what the website is, the Instagram account, TikTok, target audience demographic, just so that there's alignment between you and the creator. Then it's important to share, where is this raw content going to be submitted? What specifically are we looking for? What is required from you, right? Do we want you to edit the content in a way that makes sense to you based on your editing skills that we can use as a standalone video? Or do we just want the raw content and we're going to have our editing and our post-production team take care of it? Then you're going to want to specify, is this for ads or is this for organic content? Because depending on the type of content, you have two very different objectives. Now, this part right here, I love, because a lot of people assume that if you work with a creator that's made good content in the past, that they're just automatically going to know exactly the way that you want them to film the content. So here's where specificity is really important. And the more instructions that you can provide a creator without necessarily being a burden on them, right? You don't want to put them through some 3-hour training that they're required to go through in order to film 10 pieces of B-roll for you. But sharing a 3-minute Loom video and a couple of bullet points that say, hey, here are the best practices that we find in the best performing creatives that we get, or the creators that we work with. Can you please follow these? Then that's going to reduce the likelihood that you're going to receive content that is not aligned with what you were looking for. Then sharing examples of the type of content that you're going for, or maybe companies, reference videos, things that can provide the creator with inspiration, in which maybe you do want to give them some creative freedom to say things or to film content in environments that are a little bit outside of the guidelines that you may be provided. Because the last thing you want to do is put a creator in a box when they might have some amazing ideas and inputs that they can share. So then this is probably the most important section, which is sharing what it is that you expect of them from the hooks versus kind of the voiceover of the entirety of the video versus the B-roll that they're going to film that's going to allow you to mash together a bunch of different variations of this content in post-production. So you can go ahead and share some creator notes that are specific to this content that you're asking them to film. You can specify what the hooks are that you want them to say. And then you're gonna wanna get as specific as possible on the things you want them to say in the voiceover, but make it clear that like, hey, if you want to adjust some of these based on what you feel is like your natural use of language and what you would say normally if you weren't given a script, then feel free to deviate from this a little bit or to add a couple of things if you feel that makes sense. And then having some form of a shot list that talks about, the type of content or the main objective of the content, in addition to some creator notes, is like super important just so that you get all of that B-roll. Because the most important thing is B-roll, because it allows you to repurpose that content in so many different ways that like most brands overlook. They go to a UGC creator to have them film the content in one take where they're like, hey, my dog just got this bed, it's amazing, check this out. And then they like flip the camera, they throw it on the ground, and then the dog goes and runs and sits on it. Then they flip it back to them, and they try to do everything in one take. But that's like, number one, it's not practical. Number two, it's generally not gonna get the best end result. And number three, you're not able to take that content and repurpose it in an infinite amount of ways beyond that. And on top of that, if you have the editor actually provide you with the final edited content in a way that they like, but in a way that doesn't allow you to repurpose that raw content, then you've wasted a ton of time and money. And so as you can see, each of these different kind of scenes, it shares the specific, benefit or the thing that we want to highlight about the product in that scene so that it's very clear. And then it also makes this a lot easier for the UGC creator to actually take this content, upload it into a raw folder, and then name it with the kind of corresponding shot. That way it prevents confusion when it comes to like the editors looking for the right thing, or maybe the creative strategist trying to figure out, or you trying to figure out what content do I have relative to what content I asked for. Now, coming back to this section, this really is where all the magic happens. So what actually makes up a good ad script? Well, number one, you have your hook, right? We like to share as many of these as possible. Generally, rule of thirds is kind of standard. So, there's no point in going beyond 3 and doing 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, because it's gonna be really hard to connect those with one transitional sentence, which is kind of like the first thing that we have in the voiceover. So for example, all of these hooks, if you say them out loud and then you connect them with this transitional sentence, it will make sense. There will get to a point where your hooks either aren't different enough to where it's even worth testing, or where they just don't flow well with the transitional sentence, and then you have to make up an entirely new set of sentences. And then you basically have to script out entirely new videos for each individual hook. And again, that's not very efficient. We're trying to go for maximum output for as little input as possible so that we have leverage. So generally the ad framework that we follow is some form of a hook. And then after the hook, you have some form of a transition. So for example, this is the best thing I've ever bought. I just received my new plush bed from X brand. And let me tell you, my dog will not lay down anywhere in the house without this thing now. And so that's that thing where you can connect that with any of these hooks, and it transitions them into now front loading a bunch of benefits. And you've now already insinuated that like, here's the product and my dog loves it, and here is evidence that my dog loves it because he won't sit anywhere in the house without this thing. Then generally you follow that up with benefits or with consequences that a customer can experience if they do not have this product, aka introducing a problem and then introducing the product as a solution. So for example, before he was getting the sheets dirty, knocking things over on the couch, hopping from rug to rug, but he never really had a home base. Problem, right? Or consequence of the owner of the dog not having to deal with all this shit because they don't have a home base and a comfortable bed. And then it transitions into the solution or the benefits, if you will. But now this is a new home base and I'm extremely jealous of how comfortable he looks when he's in it. Then usually we'll provide some form of like a sub benefit or like a benefit of a benefit. So for example, if you're selling like a weight loss supplement, you can say, hey, this product will help you lose weight. And in turn, it will also help you in the dating game or to help you level up in your career, statistically speaking. And so those things are what we call sub benefits or like benefits of benefits. So you want to like really drive it home. And that's where we might say something like, on top of that, he can be as dirty as he wants when he jumps in because it's fully machine washable and it comes out looking brand new every time, unlike our rugs and our couches. Now, lastly, you can do something called there's 2 things that we like to use. One of them is a rehook. And the second one is called a mind read. And I learned the mind read from a good friend of mine, Ram. And what a mind read is it's handling an objection that a customer or a viewer might have in their head. For example, if we look at the negative reviews for other dog beds, we might see that the sizing was an issue. So right after the transition or maybe introducing benefit number 1, it might be a really good idea to say something along the lines of, now I know what you're thinking, my dog is massive or my dog is tiny and there's no bed that fits him perfectly. But we have XYZ different sizes that accommodate every type of dog. We even have sizes that are so big that you can fit in the bed with your dog at the same time if you want to cuddle with them. So that's an example of a mind read, right? Handling those objections and then tying it into an additional benefit and then using that to your advantage. And then the second thing is a rehook. And that's when someone is like just about to fall off and get bored. They're like, I get it. It's a bed. It's comfortable. It's machine washable. Like, I get it. Maybe I'm not in the market for it right now, or like I'll I'll buy this the next time I see an ad. And that's when you'd want to double down. So let's say you didn't introduce the mind read, but people are still facing that objection in their head of like, well, what about the sizing? We're like, well, what else? Is that it? And that's when, again, we can double down with the rehook and say something like, oh, and best of all, now you got their attention back in, because they're like, all right, well, what's this last thing? They have multiple sizes, no matter how big or small your best friend is. We even have sizes, or they even have sizes large enough where you can fit in the bed with your dog. That's a pretty cool thing that might cause someone to really push them over the edge and make that purchase decision. And then of course you have your call to action. So just being specific with like what the next steps are, right? How can they learn more about the product? Where can they go to order it? What is actually going to push them over the edge to make that decision now, right? So generally some type of discount, some type of stock scarcity, some type of limited time sale, or maybe a limited time free product bonus that the next 100 orders get, something that makes them make that decision now to get to your website and purchase. Otherwise, they're gonna have no reason to do, and then they're gonna keep wasting retargeting money on Facebook, just hitting them over and over and over again, because there's nothing that's really making them buy right now. All right, so now that we have 3 hooks and we have the voiceover from the creator and they're filming 10 different individual shots of B-roll, yes, we're gonna be able to create 3 ads because 1 hook and then the rest of the ad. But because we now have all of this B-roll, and because we have these hooks, and because we have these voiceovers, we can create 15, 20, 30 different variations from all the content and all of the voiceovers that we have. And this might require a little bit of work, kind of brainstorming and collaborating with your editor, or even creating additional briefs where it's maybe just designated for your editor to know what to do with that repurposed content. But you can do AI voiceovers and different hooks, and you can introduce different types of B-roll and different combinations to make each video unique and different, even though you're using the same raw content, which the raw content is generally the most important thing. And secondarily to the raw content is the text and the audio and the editing style and those things that just bring life to that content. And if you have a good editor, you can basically just tell them like, hey, we got all this B-roll, we have these hooks, we have this voiceover. Can you go ahead and create 10 different ads based on this, just with different combinations, maybe changing up some of the core text throughout the video or the order of the B-roll, or throwing in these 4 or 5 additional hooks that we're just using an AI voice for, etc. All right, now lastly here, I wanted to show a couple of examples of some good creatives I like from this brand called Green Pet. Now the example that I just showed you, it has no connotation or association with any brand. It is just an example brief. But because we were talking about a dog bed, I figured that we share the ads library of a company that is selling, dog cooling mats. So like kind of similar and complementary industry. And I know we didn't talk about static ads, but images have also been performing really great. So just something as simple as this with really compelling copy. I'm not sure whether they're using this as a retargeting ad or like a completely cold top of funnel traffic ad, but image ads that are simple and that are self-explanatory like this are absolutely crushing it right now. All right, so these are 3 different ads I'm gonna go ahead and play. I'm gonna share why I believe them to be effective and why I think this brand is absolutely crushing it, and then what you can take away from this when it comes to either talking to your editor or maybe voicing things to a creator regarding the raw content that you're trying to get.
Summer's here, and that means temperatures are rising yet again. So we got this cool pet pad that she's laying on right here. What's nice is that you don't need water, doesn't need to be refrigerated, no electricity required. It's even pressure activated and recharges automatically. It's also non-toxic, so even in the event that she did bite it, she wouldn't, but if she did, it would be safe. It's also extremely durable, so she can scratch it, she can move it around, we can fold it up and take it to the car or put it wherever else we want to, and it won't wrinkle up. We were worried, would she actually use it? And I think the answer is pretty clear.
Like, this is the epitome of what we just discussed, right?
Summer's here, and that means temperatures are rising.
Summer is here, and that means temperatures are rising again, right? That's a hook, right? A lot of pet owners are gonna be like, yeah, that's true. So what, right? Like, what's the thing that's gonna get them to that kind of that next phase? So there's definitely opportunity to make a stronger hook here, but I'm sure they have different variations that they've tested or going on behind the scenes, because you could do something totally different, right? Did you know that X out of X percentage of dogs get chronic illnesses or, have like fatal instances because of heat stroke, blah, 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 right? Like, that's a strong and a compelling hook. It might not be very liked by Facebook if you talk about something that's like negative or, that instills fear in people. So it's important to check up on the policies. But it's just getting people's attention, right?
Yet again. So we got this cool pet pad that she's laying on right here. What's nice is that you don't need water, doesn't need to be refrigerated, no electricity required.
then again, introduce the product, and then it's just benefit after benefit after benefit.
Even pressure activated and recharges automatically. It's also non-toxic, so even
it's non-toxic. You know what that is? That's an example of handling an objection, right? It's an example of like facing something or like providing an additional benefit, or like a rehook where they're like, oh, well, there must be something bad about this. And then he handles that objection like right away, directly within the video, right? Very, very powerful thing to do.
in the event that she did bite it, she wouldn't, but if she did, it would be safe. It's also extremely durable, so she can scratch it, she can move it around, we can fold it up and take it to the car or put it wherever else we want to, and it won't wrinkle up. We were worried, would she actually use it? And I think the answer is pretty clear.
Again, another example of handling an objection. Some people are like, will my dog even use this? He's saying, absolutely, like mine does. And then as you can see, very clear call to action with the next steps as far as what that customer can do in order to, purchase the product.
So it is 90 degrees today, and after just a little bit of yard work, you can see that I am feeling the heat. And if I can tell you that I'm feeling the heat, imagine what Thea wants to say.
Now, this is definitely a little bit longer than what I recommend to get to the hook, right? Like to introduce the product and like the problem is basically over that last 10 seconds. He's like, I'm really hot, as you could tell, and my dog's hot, right? You can definitely say that in shorter than 10 seconds. That's what I'd recommend here. But like, you get the point. That is the hook, right? It's being relatable. And maybe there's a benefit that they're seeing in their ad results that isn't being too salesy or too forward about what the product does.
Say when she goes outside, right there. And although we don't really leave her out there very long, we still want her to go outside. Do our best to keep the house cool. It doesn't. So that's why we also got the cool pet pad from the Green Pet Shop.
So it actually took them 30 seconds to introduce the problem, or introduce the product rather. And now, like, again, not a huge issue, especially if this ad is converting, but if it's not, it might be because, they could spend the first 5 seconds introducing the problem and saying, I'm hot, my dog's hot, and even though I keep the temperature low, it's not like good enough for her. I can still tell that she's always tired and overheated, blah, 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 right? Then introduce the product. Took them 30 seconds, but still not a bad ad, probably converting for them if they're running it. And then again, introducing benefit stacking, and then very clear call to action. And then they also slipped in some social proof. That's not a bad idea to do, whether it's, the actual creator that's doing it or whether it's other reviews or testimonials that you have, because people love when other people love things. And that's a lot of times what they base their decision around. That's why you'll notice that people who are in specific political parties tend to be almost cultish with the things that they do, the people they surround themselves with. And sometimes they literally unconsciously make decisions that they wouldn't have otherwise, just because other people in that community or that group do that thing. All right, we're gonna check one last creative here, break it down, and we'll wrap things up.
My dog Lou loves running with me, but when he gets hot, he starts panting heavily.
If you have a double-coated dog like my friend here, Thea, then you know how hard it is to keep her cool in the summer. So we got this cool pet pad that she's laying on right here.
It's pressure activated, so it starts cooling down as soon as he lays on it.
Much better, in my opinion, much faster to introduce the problem and then actually show the product. Like, I can't stress how important it is to show the product in the first 5 seconds of the ad so that they know that we're talking about a product, and then they're in the back of their head, the customer is like, oh, well, what does this thing do? I'm curious now.
It doesn't require any electricity.
What's great is that no water's required, no refrigeration needed.
It stays cold for 3 hours, and it only takes 15 to 20 minutes to recharge.
Now, you can also tell that they're mashing up footage from different maybe briefs that they've carried out or different creators they've worked with. There's different dogs, there's different voices in it. So that shows additional social proof that, hey, this didn't just work for one person. This has worked for many different people and dog owners and dogs themselves. And then in addition, they have a great native editing style to TikTok. And I always recommend using this type of kind of font and text and things that will perform on TikTok, because TikTok ads will perform well on Facebook, but Facebook ad editing styles will not always be native and perform on Facebook. So if there's one that I had to pick, it would be vertical videos with TikTok to Instagram Reel-ish style text with a central focus, meaning that it can be repurposed on multiple different advertising platforms and organic platforms.
Itself.
Plus, it's super durable, which is great because he's a bit of a chewer.
It comes in 5 different sizes for all kinds of dogs, and it's actually 20% off right now. It makes me so happy to see Brutus so comfortable on these hot days.
Plus, we were worried, would she actually use it? And I think the answer is pretty clear.
So that last clip, again, handling an objection, and it was the same footage that you'll notice in a different ad. Some people are like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. I thought you just work with a UGC creator for them to give you 1 or 2 unique end-to-end videos that they edit, and then you can never really use that content again. So like you're hoping that it works. So a lot of people think that when they take bets on individual creators that they have like one shot to get it right. But in reality, if you give them the right direction in terms of getting you the raw content that you need, you have unlimited chances of getting it right if you have a good video editor that you're working with and you provide them with very clear guidelines, right? All right, so that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope that you understood the value and the importance of having some form of a brief or a structure that you provide to creators to increase likelihood that you get that type of content that you need. And I hope that you also understood the value in having the B-roll over the voiceovers or the hooks, because while those things are important, they actually will confine your ability to create new variations of videos. And the name of the game right now, especially for paid ads, is the volume and the variety of creatives that you do test. Even if the variations are very, very slight, they can make a huge difference. Now, if you're interested in getting our ad brief templates and some more videos and more instructions and frameworks on how we break down winning ad creatives, how we create them, how to actually source good video editors, or direct line of communication with our premium video editors, then you can go ahead and visit the link below this video and join our DropSkale Mastermind, where we do weekly group coaching calls, we have premium trainings, and we have designated channels for communication around different topics of conversations, where you get direct help from me and my extended team in addition to the rest of the community members. We have some people that are doing 8 figures in there and others that are getting their first couple of sales. So it's a great environment regardless of what level of your e-commerce growth journey that you're in. So hop in, because right now it's the cheapest that it'll ever be, and the value and the price is only going to be going up over time. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next video.